the Purdue win puts B. Scott in good spirits, and what else is going to put him in good spirits is we're going to talk some Indiana Pacers, or maybe it won't put you in good spirits, B. Scott, because we're going to get into our NBA preview. We're going to first talk, of course, about the Indiana Pacers, the hometown team for B. Scott and I. Last season, the Pacers finished 34-38. They were ninth in the East. They did play in the play-in tournament. Much to B. Scott and I's dismay, we did not want them to be in the play-in tournament. They did defeat the Hornets to advance to the next stage of knockout rounds. Then they lost to the Wizards to be eliminated from postseason contention. Their offseason was relatively busy. They fired Nate Bjorkgren after one season, all that drama and turmoil there. They hire Rick Carlisle, which this is his second stint with the Indiana Pacers. He coached the Pacers from 2003 to 2007. His record was 181 and 147. That's a 55% win percentage. He made the playoffs 3 of 4 seasons. That's 2 conference semifinals appearances, and he made the East Finals in his first season. As far as transactions go, they signed T.J. McConnell to a 4-year, $33.6 million contract. They also today extended Malcolm Brogdon to 4 years, so that's good to note as well.
I wonder if there's something working on the background on that one, though.
What do you mean?
Because he's been in a lot of trade talks for Ben Simmons, and by extending him, it kind of makes his extension really matches up very nicely with Ben Simmons.
So what is our feeling on? Let's just start there. What's our feeling on Ben Simmons? Because I just
okay.
Don't...
So yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't really like. I mean, might he be a catalyst for the Pacers? Like maybe he'll be a good attribute, a good acquisition for the Pacers to have. But just if you're trying to get somebody who's going to take you to the next level, I mean, what has Ben Simmons done to show that he can take a team to the next level? Like it's not like the Sixers are a team from a big market that Simmons just couldn't get it done in a big market, or that he needed a lot of talent to around him to make this. It's not like the Sixers are a big market team and he was like a small fish in a big pond. It was he was part of a rebuild. The Sixers are very similar to the Pacers in terms of not having they have good players, but they're all homegrown. Nobody teamed up with them to try to take them to the next level. Didn't they have Jimmy Butler one year? Didn't they trade for him at some point?
Yeah, but I'm not surprised that didn't work out.
Right. So, and plus, isn't the whole drama around Ben Simmons right now is that he's not willing to address his glaring issues surrounding his game right now? So, I just don't see that as being. It reminds me a lot of when the Pacers were rumored to be in the running to get Kyrie Irving. Like on paper, sure, great, give us Kyrie, give us Ben Simmons, but they seem like they're more trouble as far as what they can be distraction wise and what they can be in the locker room than they are actually going to be worthwhile acquisitions for the club that'll translate to on the court.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk of who could be in a trade package for Ben Simmons. And look, I think Ben Simmons could be good for the Pacers as long as the right pieces are sent for him. I'll send draft picks and everything. Malcolm Brogdon, I would give up Malcolm Brogdon for Ben Simmons because point guard, I feel like Ben Simmons is a much better. I mean, you're trading up in defense, even though Brogdon's a really good defender. Brogdon is a good shooter. He's not a lights out shooter or anything. I think if the right package was built, Ben Simmons could be a real catalyst for the Pacers. Because if you think about it, the 76ers don't have shooters. They don't have shooters. I mean, it's Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Nobody's threatening to hit a three-pointer in that group. Whereas the Pacers they do have some shooters, especially, I mean, we're now seeing Chris Duarte looks like a hit, like a big hit for the Pacers. Unfortunately, I have seen his name popped up by Bleacher Report as as an idea for a package for Ben Simmons. They would trade Brogdon, T.J. Warren, and Chris Duarte for Ben Simmons and some other
What?
end of bench dweller. That's Bleacher Report, though.
Yeah, I
They're
was
really
gonna
stuck
say
on the
that
Pacers
that would be.
acquiring Ben Simmons. But I'm not putting. Maybe I'll put T.J. Warren in just because he's so injury prone recently. But I'm not putting Chris Duarte in. I'm not sending them this young potential future Klay Thompson at all. No way. So if you're able to keep Chris Duarte and then have Ben Simmons start at point for you, you have a really sizable lineup, really good defensive lineup, and then you have Jeremy. I mean, I'd put Jeremy Lamb in maybe and keep TJ Warren or whatever. You do have shooters still with the Pacers. Karis, or no, it was Malcolm Brogdon, Karis LeVert, and Chris Duarte. I'm like, no, that's like everybody. That's everybody. I'm not doing that for one guy that can't hit free throws even. But I don't know. Maybe Ben Simmons could find his stardom again by a change of scenery. I mean, I think in Philadelphia, yeah, it is a bigger market. It's not as big as Indiana. They're a little bit more rabid of a fan base in Philadelphia than we're more sensical when it comes to basketball here. I feel like, he would come here. I think he could really find his footing here in Indiana because we understand basketball. We understand that not everybody is going to be a Steph Curry, and that's okay. We as fans, we understand that, and I feel like that could benefit him a little bit, Whereas in Philadelphia, look, the process was coming. They were like, the process. We've been living through the process for so long now, and that's all we've heard about is the process, and it hasn't paid off yet. We're ready for it to pay off. Whereas the Pacers are like, we just want to be relevant. And that might be a good thing for Ben Simmons, where the pressure's not so high on him. He can play just a little bit looser.
Yeah, I can see that, and
but I'm not giving up like half of our starting lineup and then our biggest rookie acquisition for him either. Not doing it.
It just makes me leery whenever a guy is having like drama with his club, and we'll never, we don't, I guess, know the full story. You have, Ben Simmons has his story and the Sixers have their story, and we'll never know like who's right and wrong. But at the same time, whenever there's like locker room drama and trades and all that stuff, like that just really, makes you a little leery. Just because the Pacers just had their own like mini dose of that with Nate Bjorkgren. So it's like, do we want to bring in someone who's going to be that kind of distraction, or who could potentially be that kind of distraction when the Pacers are trying to get their shit back pointed in the right direction after being in a situation where a couple of years ago, when we did our NBA preview a couple of years ago, we were like, oh, the Pacers are a top 4 team in the East, whereas right now, like, they're, in that fringe playoff group. So, like,
right.
I'm just a little hesitant to do that, but yeah, sure, for the right price, there's a lot of potential and upside there. It just always makes me a little leery when there's that locker room stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
But
so
it's one of those that it's probably not going to happen, but it does make you scratch your head when you see this extension for Malcolm Brogdon and how it kind of really pairs up a little nicely with that. So it's something to keep an eye on for sure.
For sure. And then the Pacers also acquired Isaiah Jackson from the Lakers. That was during the draft. They drafted Chris Duarte out of Oregon. We mentioned that. Notable departures. The Pacers lose Cassius Stanley, Edmund Sumner. Aaron Holiday goes to the Wizards. Doug McDermott to the Spurs. So some pieces that,
Technically, we traded Aaron Holiday and we ended up getting Isaiah Jackson.
Right. So those are the guys that are no longer there. So really, obviously those players were good when they were here, but not going to be tremendously missed.
The biggest piece that you lost from that is probably Doug McDermott, just because of his 3-and-D style coming off the bench, and he's pretty athletic.
Right.
He's a secret closeted athlete, but that's probably the biggest loss right there out of the rest of them. Cassius Stanley, like, I don't know. He had a lot of, I guess we all thought he had some promise, but I guess the front office didn't. Edmund Sumner's a little bit of a head scratcher. He gets injured and then they trade him to basically dump salary. So
Yeah.
that one's a bummer. That's a bummer because he was a good contributor, but I still think Doug McDermott's the biggest loss.
Yeah, and then so now turning ahead to the 2021 season, which gets underway on Wednesday at 7 p.m. at the Hornets. The main thing going into this season, and the main thing you'll hear me talk about here, and probably you as well, B. Scott, is the injuries. Right now, Brogdon is day to day, as is Jeremy Lamb. Karis LeVert is expected to miss a little bit of time at the beginning of the year. To start off the season, and T.J. Warren still has his ongoing, injury with his foot. No timetable to return for T.J. Warren. Now, like I said, they get going on Wednesday against the Hornets. They will open at home Saturday at 7 against the Miami Heat. So, going into this season, I mean, the Pacers a couple of years ago, with Oladipo and Sabonis, we were thinking, hey, what are they, a contender to get to the East, semifinals, the East Finals? What could they potentially do? And now, after years of first round exits and last year making the play-in tournament, I think the biggest kind of question for the Indiana Pacers is, what can they do with Rick Carlisle? What can they do this season? Can we expect them to be back in the playoffs? Can we expect them to maybe even win a series? Or are they going to miss the whole thing, and are we going to be sitting here next year like, hey, what do they do? How do we tear this down? Do we tear it down? Do we do a little bit of a rebuild? What do we do? So we're going to go into hot or cold. That's where, I'll give I'll say a take, and B. Scott and I will decide whether or not that take is a hot one or a cold one. And let's start right here. The Pacers will finish above 500 this season. I do think that this is a hot take, because that's step number one. The Pacers finished under 500 last year, did not look good, through. I mean, they found their stride in certain points this season, but for the most part were, a mess. NBA.com predicts that the Pacers will be 41-41, and so I kind of looked into what the Mavericks, were the last 5 seasons under Carlisle, because in the original draft of our outline, I was going to pose the question whether or not Carlisle will be here in 5 years, because we've seen all this kind of instability with the coaching position. I mean, Vogel was here for 5 years, McMillan was here for 4. But then, of course, the whole mess with Bjorkgren and all that kind of stuff. We've seen McMillan now have success with the Hawks. So, the question is, what do we want to see out of Rick Carlisle? Because looking back, I was like, what has he had? Because with the Mavericks, he had Luka. And with the Mavericks, he had Dirk during that finals run. And during his Pacers years, he had Jermaine O'Neal, and he had Reggie Miller, obviously. So, and that's when he had the most success, is when he had...
he only had Reggie for two seasons.
Yeah, 2 of the 4. So he had Reggie for 2 seasons. He had Dirk for a while with the Mavericks. He had Luka. He
had J.J. Barea.
There's no player right now in the Pacers besides maybe Sabonis that I could see maybe being included in that conversation. So what can we really expect out of Carlisle? Well, his last 5 seasons with the Mavericks, he missed the playoffs 3 times. He did make the playoffs the last 2 seasons. The Pacers and Mavericks are both relatively young rosters, average age 27. So, Rick Carlisle does have experience with this kind of youthful roster that the Pacers have this season. Because I had thought before, I was like, oh wait, did he only win with veterans? Yeah, that's when his main success has come. But he's also seen some success with younger rosters as well. And so overall, though, I think 41-41 is a good baseline right at 500. I do think they're going to be a little bit above that, though, just because Carlisle is a better coach than Bjorkgren. The odds are that Warren and LeVert will return with a bulk of the schedule in front of them, and the Eastern Conference is still the weaker of the 2 conferences. So just kind of by those odds, do I think they're going to be, 45 and whatever? Do I think they're going to be in that 45 to 50 win bracket? Absolutely not. But I do think that just they're in a better spot than they were last year, just from a coaching standpoint and just from a roster standpoint. It's kind of the way I felt about Oladipo going into last season, because we're like, hey, well, Oladipo is going to miss some time at the start of the year, but you're going to have the bulk of the season with him actually active. So I think it's a hot take the Pacers will be above 500 this season.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a hot take. You did say though that the East is still the weaker. I mean, yeah, it's still weak, but it did get better. I mean, look at the Chicago Bulls. They're not going to be a slouch by any stretch of the imagination. I do believe the Pistons did take a step back. Cleveland's taking another step back, so that it does balance itself out a little bit at least for the Pacers division. But the Bulls did get better. I don't believe, Washington's not going to be nearly as good as they were. I mean, they lost everybody.
Right.
The Knicks are a toss-up. Who knows how they'll be? I think Atlanta is going to be even better. The Nets, I'm still out on. I think they're going to be good, but I don't, who knows there. But yeah, the Pacers have a legitimate shot of being being 500 or above 500. It just depends on health. Like, how is TJ Warren ever going to come back? Karis LeVert, how is he going to be? There's just too many questions about health, and then obviously all the talk of potential trades. I mean, what is this roster even going to look like come trade deadline? After the trade deadline, is Miles Turner still going to be an Indiana Pacer? Is Malcolm Brogdon? Is Karis LeVert? TJ Warren? What is this lineup going to look like at the midway point of the season? Because there's just a number of reasons. I mean, so that's a big thing there to look at as well. But I mean, even last year, they hovered around 500. They finished under 500, but they were still right around there, and they still had all that turmoil, and they had a ton of injuries, trades. I mean, there was a lot of things going on. I think it's a little bit more consistency. They're gonna have a better relationship with the coach, which is going to be a big deal. I mean, this is still a team that's got talented players. It's not like we're running out there a bunch of scrubs. I mean, we still have an all-star in Domantas Sabonis. Karis LeVert is just scratching the surface of what he could potentially be. If TJ Warren gets healthy, we all saw what he can look like in the NBA bubble and when he's healthy. So there's just, I mean, this roster has a ton of potential. It just needs to put it all together. And I think it can enough to, make a run to the playoffs and get in at a little above 500, but it's going to take some time. And that's why I don't think they'll be way above 500, but I think they'll be right around, if not just a little bit above.
Yeah, I'm with that as well. So the next question, the next thing that kind of falls in line for the Pacers here is, will the Pacers be in the play-in tournament? And, as much as I wanted to say that that's a cold take, they'll be firmly in. You kind of forget that being out of the play-in tournament, but it's still in the playoffs, means you're the sixth seed. Last year, the Pacers were 6 games out of that sixth seed. Now, the Wizards and Celtics were the two teams in front of the Pacers in the East last season, but I think both the Celtics and Wizards will take a step back. Obviously, you mentioned what the Wizards lost, and then I think the Celtics, what's crazy is not a lot has changed, and we'll get into that more in a minute. As far as the NBA landscape is concerned, some people have moved around, but for the most part, it's relatively everybody running it back, and not a whole lot is different. So with that said, the Celtics, I think, are going to take a step back too, because you lost a great head coach in Brad Stevens. Yes, he's still in the organization, but he's not coaching the team. So
who was their point guard last year? I can't remember his name.
I couldn't tell you, but
he's a big name.
Is it Kemba Walker?
Yes.
Okay.
They lost Kemba Walker to the Knicks.
Right. Oh yeah. So yeah, he's gone. So I mean, it's the Celtics take a step back just because especially losing Kemba Walker, Brad Stevens is no longer the head coach. So I think they're going to go backwards a little bit. So I think the Pacers will be kind of in that front. They'll be in position to make the playoffs. They would be in the playoffs, I think, in the old format. But I think as far as the play-in tournament's concerned, because I was looking at who's in front of them from last season that I could see them, passing, in the standings this season. I mean, obviously you've got the Bucks and the Nets, who will be finals contenders. You've got the Heat, the Hawks, and the Knicks, who will be strong again. And even though the 76ers right now have the most dysfunction, I don't see them falling, so far that they end up in the play-in tournament. So I just think from that point, I mean, that's 6 teams right there. So the Pacers, by even that definition, would be, in the play-in tournament. So as much as I would like to say, yeah, they'll be firmly in, they're going to be the 6th seed. Because even, when I was thinking about it, because we're so used to doing the baseline of, hey, will they be the 4th seed? Will they be the 5 seed? That we're like, oh, hey, 6 is maybe underestimating them. And like, wait, actually, 6 is probably optimistic with how things look this season. So, yeah, I think they'll end up in the play-in tournament. I think they will end up making the actual playoffs, but I think they will have to fight for their lives a little bit at the front end of the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. 6th seed is probably being a little bit too optimistic, so I agree. I think this team is going to be in the play-in tournament. I think they're going to be more soundly in the play-in tournament rather than what they were last year. I think they'll get to play the winner of the
game they were in last year.
Yeah. So that will be in their favor this time around, because I think they will be a top 8 team. So I don't think they're going to have to be battling to work their way into the playoffs from the play-in tournament. I think they'll be one of those top 8 teams that will still have to play in it, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I can see that about the 7 seed, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to be wrong. I would love for them to be better.
Oh, yeah.
But who knows? Like I said, who knows? It all depends on health.
This is a different angle that we're taking, and I think maybe it'll be good for us ultimately in the long run, because typically every year...
I think we were too high on them.
Yeah, we were like, oh yeah, 4 seed, like conference semifinals at least, like let's go, and then we'd always be disappointed. I think now this year we're ready to be pleasantly surprised. We're like, okay, you know what? We'll set the bar low so maybe you can clear it. And ultimately, where is that bar? This is where we're going to give our record prediction. For me, again, I think they're going to be above 500, and I think they will play a majority of the season with LeVert, with Warren. That's being optimistic. That's about as optimistic as I'll get. I think the Pacers are going to be 43-39, and they'll be 7th in the Eastern Conference. So, I mean, that is also judging that the bottom of the Eastern Conference will be above 500, because usually when you're talking about the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference, you're talking like, in the low 40s, high 30s.
You're talking 39 and 43.
Right, exactly. So hopefully the East is a little bit stronger in that regard. But yeah, I have the Pacers at 43-39, 7th in the Eastern Conference come season's end.
Yeah, it's hard to predict a record. I still think 7 seed. Let me throw out a number. I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic. I'll say 44-38.
Oh, you're playing prices right with me right now. You're like, you know what? I'll get that number in there.
You bet 200. I say 201.
Exactly. I like it. I like the strategy there. Anything else to add on that, B. Scott, before we move into the whole rest of the league?
I like I said, this season is so dependent on health. The wild card of the coaching relationship, I don't think we have to worry about this year. Rick Carlisle is a very respected head coach all throughout the league, and the players understand that as well. I think they were all very excited for him to get brought in. It's all about health.
Yeah.